good morning, good afternoon, good evening, in fact even good night. My name is Gareth Evans and I am the host of the forthcoming new initiative from the London Review of Books, London Review Bookshop, Screen at Home. More on that in a minute, but of course I offered you a range of greetings across the chronology of the 24 hours because who knows when you will be watching this introduction. So shot are our sleep patterns, so confusing is our calendar now given the world that we find ourselves in. That you could be watching this at any time of day or night. Unclear in fact what day it is, possibly what week it is, and soon what month it is. Only can we tell what the day is by looking at the sky outside. That's often as close as we're going to get to the sky in the current situation. But of course many things have changed about the world in which we find ourselves over these last few weeks or so, across the world, internationally, at different time frames. One thing has not changed, and that is the offer that the London Review of Books, with all its attendant portfolio outreach projects, offers to you, the reader, in this case now tonight, the viewer, in terms of its desire, nay its mission, to bring to you the most important and insightful culture, literature, and now moving image work to wherever you may find yourselves in this current situation and of course beyond into the future, whatever that future may look like. I did say of course just now that this is a new initiative, LRB Screen at Home. Of course those last two words do not come lightly and were the result of incredible energy on the part of the LRB marketing team to come up with something innovative, unique, singular even, to speak directly to the times in which we find ourselves. LRB Screen at Home, in which a film, of course, is delivered through various channels, soon to be announced, to you, alongside, of course, the conversation that the London Review Bookshop is famous for. As I said, some things don't change, the LRB continues to deliver, but a lot has changed. And where I'm speaking from, in East London, we have gone back to 1955 levels of traffic on our roads. Why we are measuring this compared to 1955, I have no idea, but it seems a significant date, ever more important in my mind as the days go on. And of course, as a result of this reduction in traffic, and in fact, as a result in the reduction of people being out in what we rather nostalgically call the world, the natural world, the flora and fauna, of course, of the planet, are returning to some kind of former glory. Foxes, of course, are widely seen now in the avenues and arcades of the area. Feral children are roaming in packs, unhindered whenever they wish and wherever they wish. And wild boar have been seen for the first time in the former hunting grounds of Dalston Junction, something I haven't witnessed, of course, in my lifetime, and is only really a rumour in the ears and the eyes of the older people. So I'm delighted also, of course, to report that not only is the natural world changing, and reclaiming some of its lost status, so also it has been brought to my attention that gentrification itself in certain places is actually reversing. Distressed furniture in artisan beer halls is now simply distressed furniture on the streets and pavements of our neighbourhood. Apartment blocks are actually shrinking, sometimes in real time, floor by floor, and they resemble nothing so much as a man whose shoulders are crumpling into his dirty raincoat as he hears that the neighbours have won the lottery. He closes up like an accordion and his song is over. So there is much, much afoot out there. Of course, you might notice that I am wearing outdoor clothes, and yet I'm clearly inside. This is because I want to remind myself, of course, that the outside world actually exists and that one day I might be able to go back into it freely and roam as the feral children and the foxes are. In fact, as the wild boar are, as I speak. I'm wearing these clothes and I'm in week 3 of the London lockdown. Of course, some of you will have experienced longer lockdowns, some shorter lockdowns, but we're in week 3 here in London, and things are starting to unravel a little bit. I think hence the clothing, of course, I'm wearing, and the slightly antic look in the eyes. While holding the camera's gaze at this point, more often than not I'm found to be gazing into my own constructed middle distance, because not even that now is really available to us. Of course, the horizons have gone. They are just a rumour that we heard of and that some of us have known. But the middle distance itself is even also under threat as I speak. You'll be pleased to know that I do have notes, and I'm now going to look at them to remind you that this introduction will not be indefinite. There is a lockdown psychology, of course, that is crucial to create on the part of government to make sure that lockdown is successful. And if we go back to that 1955 moment just for a minute, I think we can safely say that lockdown is successful when people stand at the zebra crossing waiting for the green light, and they wait indefinitely despite the fact that there is no traffic on the road. When that possibility has been secured, I think the government can rest easy, as some of them of course are currently, and we hope they will be resting much more easily very soon. They can rest easy in the fact that their message has got through. Now, in a video like this, normally I would be holding up, of course, at a certain point, a copy of today's paper to prove that I'm reading it and delivering this message on the day in question. Unfortunately, I would naturally now do a major promotion for the current issue of the LRB. I don't yet have that in my possession, of course, due to the challenging nature of the Postal Service at this point. So I'm going to hold up what I did receive today, and which many of you in the UK will have received, which is, of course, an empty envelope. And if I turn it round and move it to another envelope, you will see that it is the vital letter about the coronavirus that I received today, and which proves, therefore, that this is happening on the 8th of April. A significant date, of course, in this introduction. Now, as I said, I'm starting to lose the plot a little bit, I think perhaps like many of us, which is why I'm so grateful to everyone at the LRB, of course, the journal, production, editorial and publishing teams, and also to everyone at the LRB shop, where for the number of years past now, for 5 or 6 years, we've been hosting the LRB Screen events that I mentioned, more or less on a monthly basis, in the basement of the shop with a very high-spec sound and image projection equipment set up where we show films and have wonderful guests either directly involved in the films or having chosen the films to speak about them with an invited live audience. The audience now, of course, is international, it's global, and you will be joining me, I do hope, for the first of our live in-conversation Zoom platform events on Wednesday the 15th of April at 7 o'clock. More on that very shortly. I'm particularly grateful at this point to Sam, Anthony, Natalia and Claire for suggesting and initiating this idea and making it, of course, possible for it to come to you wherever you may be. It's come to me at a particularly good time. Like I said, in kidnap videos, people will hold up the envelope, again the wrong envelope, they will hold up the envelope and they will say, "Mummy, Daddy, please pay the ransom, it's only Lego. Please hand it over at the appointed time." That's the kind of mindset that I'm in now, which is why the purpose that has been given to me, newly given I should say, by the LRB team, is so welcome. Does an ice cream cone welcome its ice cream? Yes, it does. Do I welcome the opportunity to be partaking in LRB Screen at home? Yes, I do. I welcome it enormously. Alarm and panic are some of the watchwords of our time in this situation, of course. People have been stockpiling all sorts of items. Fortunately, there has been no prohibition yet on stockpiling books, and I've been stockpiling books for a number of years now, and I would like, of course, to draw your attention at this point to the bookshelf behind me. For those of you who consider the LRB, of course, primarily to be a fount, and rightly so, of literary wisdom and insight, I didn't want to let the moment go by without drawing attention, of course, to books, which are literally the bread and butter of the LRB shop, and in fact justify the journal's existence in the world through extended review, essay and commentary. Now, of course, this now is a staple of the new online environment we're finding ourselves in. The bookshelves of people more or less well known are now being scrutinised at great detail when they appear on news or elsewhere, giving their message from home, from lockdown, from isolation, of course, from quarantine. I don't want to particularly pick out any of the extraordinary and brilliantly chosen books that I have assembled on the shelf behind me. Of course, that is for you to do should you wish to. But I would like to draw your attention to the fact, as I mentioned, that stockpiling books is not illegal, and I have been doing it for a number of years. What is useful about the fact that one's flat is full of books is that it can conceal other things that are not so legally stockpiled. For example, of course, the infant's paddling pool of hand sanitizer that we have managed to accumulate over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and the rolls of toilet paper that now, forced due to lack of space to sleep on, resemble nothing so much as either a waterbed or a slightly broken futon. So we all do what we can to stay afloat, and one of the things I'm doing to stay afloat, of course, is to consider the film in question for you, coming on the Wednesday 15th of April conversation time, but available to view in any time from when you see this newsletter, should you see it, before the conversation event. Now, we are talking about the nature of what brings us joy. In the spirit of stockpiling, of course, this event brings me joy. Stockpiling should not be a source of joy. If we listen to Marie Kondo, of course, she says only keep in your home what brings you joy. Now, many of the books I've stockpiled do bring me joy. Perhaps not all of them, but those that I know bring me a huge amount of delight. And increasingly, the hand sanitizer paddling pool and the stockpiles of 3 quilted deluxe also bring me a joy that I cannot quite put into words. But even that wonderful pleasure is dwarfed by the delight it gives me to bring you the LRB Screen at Home event. The opening event is one grounded in the city in which I find myself and in which the bookshop and the offices of the LRB find themselves, but one that speaks universally to the times we find ourselves in. We wanted to bring you a series of films in the current period that are perhaps films that you won't necessarily know, but also, more importantly, films that in some way highlight or illuminate aspects of our current situation. They bring a vision, perhaps slant, perhaps associatively, tangentially, to our pandemic crisis moment, and they speak in ways that will always offer resilience, resistance, and forms of hope. They will never give up in the face of challenge, and while this challenge is one unprecedented in our lifetime, in fact, arguably in the history of the species, there are many challenges in our history that have taken a far more drastic and immediate form, collectively and immediately, and we think of those as well while we think of the current situation. Now, this is all care of and thanks to the LRB. We always want you, of course, to support independent bookshops wherever you find yourselves and wherever you find them, particularly at this moment. In fact, actually, let's just slightly qualify that. We want you to support the London Review Bookshop wherever you find yourself and wherever your bookshop needs are fulfilled. We'd still like you to support the LRB Bookshop. Of course, I do mean that, but I don't mean it at the expense of your neighbourhood store. All bookshops are part of a global network of necessity, need, and pleasure. And I urge you, while they are still with us, some of them under incredible pressure, to support them all. So the plan is this, very simply. If you come in at this point, you will get the whole story, and all of the other nonsense that has led up to this can be absolutely ignored. Each Thursday, the LRB will send out a newsletter, and in that newsletter will be details of a film available online to view that will be the subject of discussion the following Wednesday at 7 o'clock UK time, to be joined live, should you wish to, via the Zoom platform. Now, we know, of course, that there are concerns widely circulating around the Zoom platform. People have talked about other platforms being available, and they absolutely are. We have so far currently found that Zoom appears to be the most useful and amenable for this larger scale participation. I use the word larger there advisedly, of course, suggesting that some people might actually take up this invitation and find themselves on the Zoom platform at 7 o'clock UK time next Wednesday, the 15th of April. Let's hope that is the case, and we'll work with that as our guiding principle. But I would argue that if there are concerns around the Zoom platform and what it does behind the scenes, I would argue that the ethical rigour that we bring to the introduction and to the film and to the conversation that follows more than compensates for, arguably brushes aside those ethical concerns at the level of software, not just at the level of conversation. Now, that might seem ludicrous to some of you out there. Any more ludicrous than the idea that 5G masts, of course, are spreading the virus directly? No, there we are. So I would like to think that the ethical rigour of these events clears your computer, laptop, phone or tablet of any abiding bugs, gremlins and digital demons that might or might not be in there. We'll of course test that out next Wednesday at 7 o'clock UK time. And the first film we're going to be showing, as I said, is a London sourced film, London made film by great London makers, both behind of and in front of the camera, but it's one that speaks globally. The film is called Here for Life. It is produced by the great arts production agency Art Angel, and it is directed, co-directed, by Andrea Luka Zimmerman, established filmmaker with many films to her CV, a filmmaker who has worked internationally and with the likes of John Berger in earlier work. You can of course find details of all the people I'm going to mention online. And she has made this film with Adrian Jackson, the award-winning director of Cardboard Citizens, the theatre company, now a quarter of a century old, that works with homeless and formerly homeless people in London and across the UK. These two talents have come together to create an extraordinary film, Here for Life, which works with a troupe of performers drawing on real-life experience, on their own difficulties, their challenging lives, often moving and also ongoing in some of the challenges they face. And they've engaged with the borderline between fact and fiction. They have told stories, they have retold stories, they have passed stories around. They have shared their experiences, they have occupied the voice of others and asked others to occupy their own stories. They move through a city that is recognisable but slightly altered. Is it a fiction? Is it a factual work? It's both, it's more of course, it's a hybrid work that occupies a third space between these two more established forms. It's a work of deep humanity. It's a work of resistance and resilience, as I said, and it does offer, in its making, which of course will be spoken about next Wednesday, and its reception, its delivery, and hopefully its reception, should you like it, a form of radical hope for our times, not least from the title on. We are, and they are, here for life. Life shall win out. So I do hope that you enjoy the film, Here for Life, which you will find on the links in this newsletter. You will find the trailer link also in the newsletter, and you will watch the film ideally, should you wish to, on the platform link provided, and the money of course going directly to the makers, to the production company who's made this film possible. We must always think of artists among the many other communities struggling at this time, so good to be able to support them with a very cheap watching purchase option for the film Here for Life. You'll watch that at any point before next Wednesday, and of course at any point, should you wish to, into the future. And then you'll join us by signing up to the Zoom platform for 7 o'clock UK time next Wednesday, the 15th of April, where I will be in Zoom conversation with Andrea, Luka, Zimmerman. I hope that's very clear. It took me a time to get to it, but in a way, we set the scene, and from then on, it'll be much, much swifter, I hope. We'll be doing this every Wednesday at 7 o'clock with the film viewed to be able to be watched in the week beforehand. Newsletters going out on Thursday from the LRB shop. So thank you very much for listening to this. If you have even got this far, massive, massive thanks for doing that. Here for Life matters. The situation we are in matters enormously, but we need to find ways in which we can obviously bring some kind of illumination to this difficult time. Please, wherever you are, support your care and health workers, and obviously please do support in any way you can the LRB long range booksellers. Thank you very much.